Welcome back to my balcony for this special edition of Have a Tintico with me. As we know, we explore social impact, entrepreneurship, and the pursuit of positive change in my balcony over a good cup of Tintico. Today, I have the honor of hosting our very first guest, Cordell Carter, my good friend, my co-conspirator. Thank you for being here in Medellin.
It's a pleasure.
Cordell is a rock. I mean, he is amazing. He's the executive director of the Aspen Institute Socrates program, founding director of the Aspen Institute Project on Belonging, and the founder of the Festival of the Diaspora. As you all saw, we were there in Cartagena this past March. His commitment to social impact and creating positive change is honestly just inspiring. He serves on the board of directors of Concordia, on the advisory boards of Skillstorm, EV Passports, Fulcrum Fund, and Tulsa Innovation Labs. And I would be remiss if I don't share that he recently joined the board of my foundation here in Colombia, Casa Innovation, and we're honored to have him. Furthermore, in June of 2021, President Joseph Biden appointed him as commissioner to the President's Commission on White House Fellowships. So I know you're impressed. I am too. And I get the honor and privilege of calling him friend as well. So thank you so much for being here.
It's
Cordell.
a pleasure.
We really
Pleasure.
appreciate it. So today we're going to be diving into topics like diasporic communities, social entrepreneurship, and really the importance of global connections. So Cordell, I'd love to hear your insights on all of these important subjects. Let's try and keep it short and brief, but also entertaining. The first I'll start with is just asking you, Cordell, if you could share your vision and motivation behind finding the Festival of the Diaspora, and really how does it contribute to creating connections and fostering collaboration with the diaspora community, and also just give you a chance to say hello.
Yeah. Well, again, hello to everyone, and what an amazing day to be in Medellin. The weather is proving to be quite something. So you bust out your linens on a day like today. It's just gorgeous to walk around. You know, when I think about the inspiration behind the Festival Diaspora, it really came about, two big things. One is a micro conversation, a thread in a much larger conversation that I picked up on after we had finished. Yeah. You know how that happens sometimes. Yeah. I was in Puerto Rico in 2019 trying to deliver a product called the American Value Seminar. Ooh. And I didn't understand why it was not being received as well in Puerto Rico as it been in the U.S. And so I'm like, well, I'm dying to know what's going on here. Yeah. And so I pulled some folks aside that were frowning. I said, can we have dinner tonight? And she says, I need to bring 2 of my friends. Well, that 2 became 7. It's all good. Oh. And these
That's how we Latinos do.
These 9 professors basically had me in the corner of this restaurant telling me about the history of American expansion in the Caribbean and beyond, things I didn't know. Yeah. And I was shocked, embarrassed, and frankly inspired because in our country, when you have that blue passport, you can be fully engaged as an American, yet fully critical of the American experience. And so that's one of the uniqueness of America. But I also was reminded of what was going on in the world at that time. In November 2019, we had a former president that was highly caustic. That was his brand. Yeah. You had people that were hesitant to talk to each other. There was a lot of animus in our political economy at that point. And I said, you know, the way I grew up in Southern Virginia, the way we would solve this, we would do 2 weeks every summer called the Summer Revival. Where you're supposed to fix all the maladies for the year, bury all the hatchets.
Recharge.
And to me, I said, this is when the aliens came. Yeah. Because we were city kids. Even though we were in segregated neighborhoods, we didn't know that. But you knew it when you saw the folks coming from the country with the buggies. You're like, wow, why are they so big? Well, they work with their hands. Everyone was super strong. Their hands were this thick. They had different instruments, different rhythms of the music. But it was amazing. I said, can we create that in a secular sense? Yeah. Thus, the Festival Diaspora. I noticed there's so much joy in the Caribbean, so much joy in Latin America. In the U.S., we have so much resources, but no joy, no life. I'm like, you're just working and dying? Pretty much. Yeah. I said, well, I'll trade joy. I'll trade resources for more joy. And so that's the goal of the secular tent revival, to bring all these leaders together from the Americas and let's be more joyful together.
I love that. I was saying in one of my tinticos a little bit back that one of the reasons I moved back to Colombia is that I felt like in the United States we live to work, and in Colombia we really work to live, right? And in Latin America we work to live, and I just love that.
Yeah.
So bring me back to that, because I often try to describe the definition of a diasporic community. Can you provide us with your definition of it, and how would you describe the unique characteristics and dynamics that exist within such communities?
Certainly. So, I mean, the basic definition of a diasporic community is that people that are cast out of their home and are essentially making home in other places. And I relate this to the Jewish struggle and how at the fall of Solomon's temple in 66 AD, the religion stopped being temple-based and started being home-based and kept by the mothers with Shabbat every Friday. You know, you would recreate what would typically happen in a temple, and that's how you're able to keep the culture amongst you. So the North Star became the family itself. Yeah. And so you look across the Americas because of European expansion, nobody is where they should be. We're this melangerie of amazing people from different parts of the world who call America home, call ourselves Americans, 35 different countries, 35 different stories, perhaps even more. But the point is that we're here. Yeah. And we have an opportunity to recreate our own North Star and reclaim, if you will, our homeland. And here's, I think, our opportunity to make that North Star ourselves.
That's right.
And our gathering and what we are able to do together. That becomes a North Star for these various diasporic communities. And so, like, my goal is to get the festival in every continent. But the Americas is a different story. Because when you say diasporic communities, it means something different in the Americas. Just because of the unique facets of our history. European expansion looked very different in the United States versus Caribbean versus Brazil versus Colombia. And so how do you marry these stories together? And frankly, how are you energized by your ancestors? This idea, this ancestral intelligence, this notion of these people have went through some horrific things. Yet they survived. How do I know? Because I'm here. They survived. And so that is something that you should derive joy from, not grievance. So, you know, let's use our ancestral intelligence as the jet fuel for our current ambitions.
I couldn't have said that better. I will say, I was talking about you to my cousin Alex yesterday, and I was saying that one of the things I love about how you describe diasporic communities is that you've, I don't know if intentionally, have created a way for many people to feel like they're a part of this community and not. So in Colombia, when we talk about diasporic communities, we often refer to Afro-descendant communities, right? When you described diasporic communities to me, I thought, I'm a political refugee of the United States. Yeah. I am not where I should be as a result of what has happened to Colombia. And my ancestors reflect diasporic communities as well. And suddenly I felt like this is my fight too. And now all of us should fight together. It's genius. It's genius.
Yeah, that's what I said. The Americas is a special case. If we were in Azerbaijan, I would frankly only be talking about Azerbaijanis and Iranians.
Exactly.
Okay, in Bosnia, we would only be talking about Serbs and Croats. Yep. But here, you're literally talking about everybody that's here.
Yep.
Everybody. Yep. And even the indigenous peoples that say, well, this has been our homeland for millennia. Fully agree. Yeah. Where exactly? Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure Europeans moved you somewhere. Okay, you had to reclaim some place's homeland. And so we're all in on this thing called diaspora communities.
And it's ever evolving, right? I mean, we're sitting in my balcony with a wonderful camera crew of Venezuelans who are a diasporic community in Colombia as of today, right? So it's not just our past.
Certainly.
But it's our current.
It's our present, absolutely.
That's
and
right.
Likely our future as well.
Likely our future, not if we have something to do about it.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
Can you tell us about any upcoming plans or developments for the Festival of the Diaspora?
Funny you should ask.
What are you doing in Colombia?
Well, we're having a planning meeting. We have a couple dozen alums that are coming in from all over to help us think about what the program theme should be for 2024. Yeah. We're going to be in Rio de Janeiro. At now the Sheraton, the Grand Sheraton Hotel and Resort in LeBlanc.
Oh, emphasis on the Grand.
Yeah, the Grand. I just stayed there a few days ago, and it's quite grand. I enjoyed it. Nice. Moreover, I think our team is going to love it. It's completely self-contained, and it's centrally located, so you can get to different places around Rio. And I'm super excited to partner with those Brazilian organizations just doing amazing work, and fellas with women entrepreneurs, as you know, is a big theme of ours, focusing on women. And so I'm super excited for this weekend in Medellin, planning, and then the next several months as the run up to Rio.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And we'll talk a little bit about sort of that partnership between Casa Innovation and the festival. But I want to dive into social entrepreneurship, because that is very much what we're both passionate about. That's why I founded Casa Innovation. That's why the festival exists. How would you define, I do a lot of work in my Tinticos in Casa Innovation through my clients on defining social entrepreneurship. How would you define it? And then what are sort of the key elements that distinguish it from traditional entrepreneurship?
Yeah, for me, it's about intent. I mean, there are thousands, millions of enterprises that are started every year. But there are a few that say, okay, part of our business strategy is impacting the greater good from the start. You may say, okay, we've done really well, and now we want to start giving back. No. Giving back is part of the business plan. So to me, that's the key distinguishing factor for a social enterprise. That and the desire to scale as fast as humanly possible.
Yes.
so when you think about the festival, profit making for us is a little different. It's like, number one, you want to cover your costs. Number two, you want to have enough funds to execute a program that you think will contribute to the greater good both now and in the future. And then thirdly, you want to build enough momentum for your next event. And so to that end, we are very much a social enterprise, accomplishing all of those things. And here, this is our second year of corporate existence.
That's great.
But so far, so great.
You should know Bambina is a host of Have a Tintico With Me, so she'll be asking some questions later on.
I can tell by the collar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's ready.
She's ready.
But I appreciate your definition, because I often talk to my clients about, or our Casa Innovation diaspora community members, they'll often say, am I a social entrepreneur, right? I have a for-profit business. And my argument is always, you should have a for-profit business, but you should have a mentality to have positive social impact, right? So whether that means that you would like to, in your hiring practices and your vendor choices and incorporating people that are sort of underestimated or not in the social contracts that we all engage in on a daily basis. And I think at the Festival of the Diaspora, when I spoke at the panel, I mentioned my favorite quote from Bill Drayton from Ashoka.
Okay, yes.
And I always say it because it's what has brought me to where I am today. He says, social entrepreneurs are not content just to give a man a fish or teach a man how to fish. Social entrepreneurs will not rest until they have revolutionized the fishing industry. And for me, I want to co-conspire with people who are looking to revolutionize whatever industry that they happen to be in. So I agree with you. So when we think about sort of supporting social entrepreneurs, which is very much a pillar of what we both do, Casa Innovation, that's like the social entrepreneurship incubator. The Festival of the Diaspora has a very unique focus on empowering social entrepreneurs as well. So can you share your insights on sort of creating a specialized ecosystem or incubator for underestimated social entrepreneurs? And how can this partnership between Casa Innovation and the festival better support their growth, maximize their impact, and sort of contribute to a focus on social impact?
Yeah, this started for us in Martha's Vineyard last August. A chance conversation with a colleague at the, what do you call that alcohol that gets people really messed up?
Every alcohol?
No, there's a special one that everyone, I can't think of it now. It's a type of, almost like a Grand Marnier, but it's not. Hennessy. Hennessy party.
Yes, Hennessy
party. That's what it was.
Exactly what Hennessy does.
That's exactly what Hennessy does. Two drinks in, and you don't remember your name.
That's right. That's so good.
But thank goodness she remembered the idea.
Nice.
And the idea I pitched, I said, listen, we're going to Colombia. A third of the population is Afro-Colombian. Help us invest in women down there. If you help us invest in women, do a pitch competition, the same that you do with historically Black colleges and universities here in the United States, you're going to have a far better impact for far less price. And said that, left. I get a call a month later. Hey, could you retell me what we said? I'm like, who are you again? It was a Hennessy party.
Was I there?
But it came back to me, and sure enough, Black Ambition said, let's do it. Let's do a pitch competition. I'm like, okay, great. Help. Because I'm an ideas guy, and I go out and I can fundraise, but I'm like, I need someone that can execute. And a good mutual friend connected us, and the rest was history. There's no way we've been able to pull off a national pitch competition in 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yes.
Without cost innovation.
That was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I don't know about you, but I sometimes have, I don't want to call them bad dreams, but I would say temporary negative thoughts about the people who didn't hear about us because it was so quick and all that. I mean, it's a consequence. It is what it is. And it's not like we could have controlled the timing, but it is something that bugs me. Yeah. Granted, the people that we did get have been amazing.
Oh, yes. We've created a network.
And this idea of leveraging these amazing women and the work that they've done to build a model for the continent on how to support, how to incubate talent, how to provide professional development, and just exposure opportunities for businesses that are going just fine, but can do so much better with scaling. That this is how you leverage the platform.
That's right.
This is how you make sure that this organization is doing an event on every continent by 2027, which is our big goal. And so that is the model we hope to continue. We were able to give out $25,000 USD in March, and our goal is to double that for Brazil. Talk about much bigger population, 220 million people, with 54% identifying as either Black or Mestizo, whatever the word you want to use. And so you have tens of thousands more entrepreneurs. Yeah. And so I think the opportunity for impact and the partnership with the people that we're going to meet in Brazil, I think is just tremendous. Yeah.
So the way I see it, and feel free to add to this, is I imagine this sort of incubator of sort of diaspora or Festival of the Diaspora chapters, right, that come from every country, right? So this year we have the sort of Colombia chapter with the Casa Innovation ladies, and my dream, right, and I said this when we spoke at the festival, is that 5 years from now, we have 5 chapters, 5 different countries of sort of women, or entrepreneurs, I don't know, maybe we'll spread up, we'll go beyond women, but of entrepreneurs that are sort of in this underestimated category. And we spent some time on Monday, at least at Casa Innovation, defining what we meant by underestimated entrepreneurs, because this is a term you put us onto. Yes. And it has now turned into our sort of strategic mission and vision for Casa Innovation. And it was this thinking that there are entrepreneurs everywhere, there are social entrepreneurs everywhere, but there are a specific number of entrepreneurs that are sort of from marginalized communities that have often been kept out of sort of the opportunities track, the social contract that we've been. So we defined 5. We're working on it. One of them we said was diasporic communities, and primarily in Colombia that includes Afro-descendants, indigenous communities, etc. The second we said would be primarily for the LGBTQ plus community. That's a community within Colombia and within the world that has sort of limited opportunities or less access to opportunities, especially still in Colombia. The third is migrant communities. In Colombia, we have displaced communities. We have Venezuelans that are here. We have migrant communities that are entrepreneurs with goals and dreams, but limited access to opportunities. And so that would be the third. Our fourth one is we want to work with youth, right? Young entrepreneurs that are looking to make a difference in sort of the social enterprise space. And our fifth one being women, right? Making sure that we ensure that the women entrepreneurs are also receiving access. So curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure.
And also in addition to that, sort of your thoughts on this goal of an incubator that adds different countries across continents throughout the years.
So there's a saying we say a lot in the U.S. that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And how that's expressed for entrepreneurs is resources. I suspect that a lot of people could be very successful if you had enough resources. If you were spreading it around. The current failure rate for venture capital in the USA is over 98%. There's no natural reason that would be the case. There's obviously some bias in the system. And we know the bias is based on association. If you have worked for Apple or Google or Meta, it's assumed that you have powers that you may not necessarily have. Okay, but they say, okay, well, they're network, we trust that brand, therefore we're going to overly fund these folks and deal with this 98% failure rate. And I'm like, well, if it's your money you're losing, that's fine. But last time I checked, university endowments involved. So that means you have, in many cases, state-funded institutions that are actively contributing to a system that is not fair to their own graduates.
That's correct.
Okay, this is a major problem.
Yeah.
So at some point, the stakeholders will not allow this to continue to happen. So we're trying to get out in front of it by putting some structure in place, showing them like for a much smaller spend, you can have massive impact on the very people you say you're trying to impact.
Yeah.
And so the big hairy idea for me, yes, we're going to incubate cohorts of women entrepreneurs from all around Latin America. But we're going to get them to a point when they become a federation and they're now selling their products directly to U.S. purchasers. Okay, just cutting out the middleman and just going right to the U.S. All right, I got a product.
What do we say, Diaspora Vendor Network?
The Diaspora Vendor Network. Exciting. And on the other side, you have people like me that have marketing spend through our various associations. I have to spend the money on these events regardless. Yeah. Why am I not spending on the Diaspora Network? Yeah. Like there's nothing preventing me from doing it. Yeah. So let me redirect it because it's going to be 50% less at a minimum than anything I would buy in the U.S. Yep. And higher quality. Somebody's hands made that. Someone's mom made that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I want some of mom's magic at some of the events that we're doing in the U.S. And I think we could have a mutually beneficial solution for a lot of people.
I love that. You know, one of our hosts this weekend at the Finca, they're called Azar Studio. We're very grateful for them. And it's a family business of ours, and my mother is the founder. Anyway, she lived in the United States her whole life, is now coming back home and built Azar Studio. And she came up with a tagline for it the other day, and I almost cried. I said, Mom, you need to print that and put it everywhere. She said, I want Azar Studio to be Colombian heart, American experience. And I was like, the idea that you can be a studio, a printing shop that has a Colombian heart, but that can get that American experience to you and lower the cost, and you're supporting sort of a diaspora vendor network is pretty amazing and genius.
Yeah. And and another thing it hasn't come up is I remember when we were reading these applications. Yeah. This is back in February. Yeah. And you're seeing how many jobs these companies are supporting. Yep. And these are not big revenue according to US standards organizations, but for local standards, 10, 20, 30, 40 jobs. Yep. And Choco, Pacifico, I mean, you name it, you're like, whoa.
The impact.
The
that you
massive
can have with
impact.
one order. Yeah.
Massive impact.
That's right.
And so I'm like, so I've been encouraging the 200 or so folks that came to Colombia and then the other 150 that were in Puerto Rico, we have some places some people you should be buying products from. And so, next steps is to get the network, the website up for the network, to have everyone telling their story, showing their products, and a link. This is where you buy. Yeah. How many thousand pieces would you like, sir?
Exactly. And what's beautiful about this diaspora cohort chapter we created is the ladies that participated did not just stay at receiving the prize. They've signed on as volunteers. Yes. We've got one volunteer, Lizette, from Vice Canal. She just submitted to us her proposal for this vendor network on a volunteer. So because we're in my apartment, we just got cut off by my dogs barking. But we are back. Apologies on the break. But what we were saying is that I think with the vendor network, one of the great things about the diaspora community here in Colombia is they didn't just stay at winning the prize. They actually signed on as volunteers of continuing this. So one of them, actually, Lisette from Vice Canal, just submitted a proposal for how to structure the vendor network. So they're all using their skills that they use for their business to also kind of grow this, which I really, truly enjoy. But yeah, so I wanted to ask you, Cordell, specifically, about the Festival of the Diaspora. We're trying to co-create something that's major, really. How can people get involved? How should they be involved? We often get a lot of questions from people here and everywhere. What do I do to get involved? How can they do that?
Number one, the women that we're supporting are doing things that no one else is doing, meaning they're providing opportunity for some of the most underestimated, under-resourced parts of Colombia. Often they're doing this as a part-time endeavor because they have jobs as engineers or doctors, but this is what they do to help out their families. So let's help them help their families and their neighborhoods and their communities by contributing to CASA Innovation financially to provide them that support, because there are many more women just like them. That's number one. Number two, please come.
Yeah.
Come to Brazil. Come to Rio.
Come to Brazil.
We would love to have it. It's February the 22nd to 25th. I'm actually hoping this weekend to come up with an equivalent price for Colombians, because you have to take in these differences of currencies and lifestyle levels.
Yeah.
Plus, that's a long flight. By the way, all of our maps are political. Latin America is huge.
It is.
Oh my gosh, it's so big.
We weren't taught that in American
We weren't
school
taught in
systems,
American.
huh?
And the American map of Latin America looks like it's super thin and long, and you don't realize it's literally like 3 time zones east of us. It's incredible.
You realize that by traveling.
I realized by traveling, yes.
Back and forth.
Back and forth. But that trip from Bogota to Rio is going to be expensive for a lot of our entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And Cost Innovation is here to support those folks. And so you can support Cost Innovation. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
And then also, I want you to come. And then thirdly, pass the word.
Yeah.
There is no doubt that you know people that are doing work in Brazil, that are doing work in other parts of Latin America, that are based here in Colombia. These are people we need to know as well. Yeah. We want to add them to the network so we can better leverage their networks to ensure that event in Brazil is the most inclusive and comprehensive festival that the continent has ever seen.
Yeah. What about for folks who want to support the festival from within the United States?
Yeah, we do events. We have 3 coming up. One is a multi-faith Shabbat, of course, Preacher's Kid. That we're doing it this week of UNGA Week, the United Nations General Assembly Week in September. We're doing it in New York. I believe the date is September 15th. So it'll be up on Eventbrite, so you can come. I think it's limited, of course, because of the facility size, and I'm bringing in a choir, so they take up space and they eat. So there you go. But it's gonna be fun, and hopefully record it very well, so we can put it on YouTube so everybody can see and enjoy it at their own homes. We have an event in August, on the August 19th. Mm-hmm. It's a FOTD dinner, the Diaspora Dinner in Martha's Vineyard. So if you're in Massachusetts, August the 19th, let us know. We'd love to see you there. And then later on in September, we're hoping to do a diasporic event at the Colombian Embassy. That would be featuring Cost Innovation, the entrepreneurs, hopefully some very leading female leaders at the top of both of our countries' federal structure, being Colombia and the USA.
Manifest that. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Then we get these 2 amazing vice presidents on the stage with the Colombian ambassador and others. So those are the 3 big events that are coming up. I forgot one, actually. That September's busy for Colombia. That the 3rd week of September, Aspen, Colombia is doing a Socrates seminar.
That's right.
In Medellin. So we're here in Medellin, and so I'll be definitely inviting a lot of folks from Medellin and the festival network to be there. And the gentleman who leads Aspen, Colombia, his name is Dr. Pablo Navas. He's based in Bogota. He just reached out yesterday. They're doing a fundraiser for Colombia in DC on November 15th. I just discovered this literally yesterday.
Great.
And so connecting him to the whole festival people, because these are the folks that are going to support the event.
That's exciting. I can't wait. I'm very much looking forward to every single one of those.
Yes.
And I love the idea of giving our network within the United States to support, because when you support the festival within the United States, you are there for also supporting the festival's mission within other continents. And I think that's important to highlight, is that we're always aiming to be this sort of bi-directional bridge between the Americas. And I think it goes both ways. So that's great.
A very important point. I mean, for too long, foreign aid, development, mentorship has been a one-way street. We know more because we're wealthy folks from the United States. And it hasn't gotten us very far. So I think this bi-directional approach is more appropriate, moreover, I think necessary, in this 21st century.
I just remembered at the Festival of the Diaspora in Cartagena, I think the most magical moment was when we really flipped this on a bi-directional way, and we put our entrepreneurs on the stage and had them share their meaningful expertise with the audience. And I tell that to everyone, the goosebumps moments of, from the beginning, right? So the entire weekend, the festival was in Spanish, and everyone had these sort of translating. Most of our entrepreneurs were the ones getting translation in their ear from English to Spanish. And getting to have everyone in the audience have to put on the headsets and listen to our native language in translation, all the way from that to, you know, the Vice Canao and Herencia Guaripeña, the shots that they gave at the beginning so we could do a cheers to our ancestors.
Yes,
I mean, everything about how that session was structured for me was the definition of the type of bi-directional incubator I want to be a part of.
Definitely. And you can imagine scaling that when we're in Brazil.
Yeah.
And so the Colombian women are on stage telling their story.
Yes.
It's being translated to Portuguese. We flip the script. The Brazilian women are telling their story. And all of us haven't put on devices.
That's right. That's right.
None of us understand
None of us are
Portuguese.
Like, what? That's going to be great.
What you said, bom dia.
Ay,
You're
Dios
like,
mío.
huh?
I just got buenos dias down. Now you want me to do bon dia?
But that's a humbling experience, you know, this idea that they're not going to accommodate me.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't request it. I shouldn't demand it. That's
No.
my equal.
Yeah.
So let me put on a device just like they would for me.
Yeah.
And so I can understand them in their native language.
Yeah. I love that.
That's a humbling experience that we all should have.
You know that I moved back to Colombia 2.5 years ago, and I lived in the United States for 23 years. And so I've had my own culture shock, even though I'm Colombian American. But what I have loved the most about being here is being reminded of the richness, the knowledge, the intellect, the culture that we have here, and being reminded of the lack of a bi-directional mentality between the United States and here. And so the more we can do opportunities in which folks from the States can come to Latin America and see the richness that is here, the more
I agree. I agree. Yeah. That's the right way to travel.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the right
so
way.
I want to finish. I've been thinking about sort of these social entrepreneurs and this concept that is quite new for some people, especially in Latin America. I think we assume social entrepreneurs is a luxury, right? You can only be a social entrepreneur if you have money.
Right.
And so I would love your thoughts on, like, what are some core skills that a social entrepreneur has or should have? Because I would imagine that when people hear this, they might know that they themselves are social entrepreneurs, or that they can be quite quickly.
Well, one thing I would say is resilience.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm thinking of the old hymn. I was in Leblon the other day and watching these massive waves. And I said, and I'm looking at this rock. There's this huge boulder that's just taken that wave. And it's probably taken it millions of times. It's been there since, you know, tectonic forces dropped it from the glacier, you know. And I said, well, that is what we have to be. We have to be that rock in the middle of the waves. Yeah. And that's how you are successful. This idea that come with May, I'm going to keep pushing forward, and I'm going to stand my ground because what I'm doing, I believe to be right and helpful. And I'm of this belief that, you know, our jobs as humans is to find what we're put on earth to do. And once we've figured it out, it's on us to take personal responsibility to make that happen. If we don't, the world is darker.
That's right.
Because we didn't fully uncover that lantern that is us. And so it's not just us that lose. The world loses. And so how do we prevent that loss? How do we brighten up the place? To me, that's where resilience comes through. The second piece is honesty.
Yeah.
You got to be like, honesty / self-awareness.
Yeah.
I know I am not a details person. And I have learned that all the more, especially as I've traveled and hear these weird requirements I've never heard of. Like what?
Like yellow fever?
Like yellow fever certification. I'm like, are you serious?
I have that physically?
Like who is still getting yellow fever in the 21st century? You know? Apparently a lot of the world is.
Disclaimer, if you're coming to Brazil, bring your yellow fever vaccination.
Just bring all your vaccines with you. Just keep them with you with your passport.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, that'd be wise. But it was also a very humbling lesson because I lost all my advantages.
That's right.
Like I couldn't get my first class ticket because it was too late.
Oh, friend.
Okay, I had to sit in the middle for 9 hours.
Oh, friend.
Yeah, with my wide shoulders.
Here, have some
it's
coffee.
not fun. Yeah, it wasn't fun. But you know what? It was humbling, and it reminded me of my own failures. This idea that I know I'm not detail oriented, and so I build around it. I find people around me that are. And so I was thinking about this morning as I was coming in. There are 8 women in my life that kind of run the show for me. Maria being one of them.
I am one of them.
Andrea being one of them, brand new. And all of them have like 2 or 3 skills in common. And one of those skills is going to be details. They understand details. Why? So I subconsciously have been building towards my weaknesses.
I love that.
Yeah, and I didn't know that,
I
right?
love that.
But so I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track. I think I have to make better leverage of their gifts so that I'm not in a situation again.
Yeah.
That or just Cordell do less. And then thirdly, I think you just have to have a core belief. Whatever you believe in, whatever motivates you, lean into that. Because we make the assumption that we're humans having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual people having a human experience. And so you got to lean on things that are drawing into that emotionalism, your spiritual, because that's something that's beyond the human experience, okay? And that's what's going to give you strength throughout the human experience. And so you think about that last day when those women are telling their stories in Spanish and there's not a dry eye in that room, and how that room turned into a revival, a real live revival. And no one could explain how or why or when, but it just was. That was a spiritual thing. That was our spiritual beings connecting. Okay? It didn't require background music. It didn't require motivation. We were just there. Yeah. We were in that moment. Yeah. How do we recreate that and then scale that times 10? That makes for an amazing thing.
You know, I speak Spanglish, so what you just said, I have to try and bring to my community.
Please do.
You said, cometemos el error de que somos humanos viviendo una experiencia espiritual, cuando en realidad somos seres espirituales viviendo una experiencia humana. That alone, Cordell, is exactly, I think, why we're both at this table right now. I love that. And the last thing I'll tell you is that I rebranded my consulting firm because you suggested it.
Okay.
And when I rebranded it to Radiante Strategy Group. And you know this because you gave me feedback. But I made Radiante because I love the sunflower. And what I love about the sunflower, apart from it just being beautiful, is that it literally radiates around the sun, right? It is always focusing on light. It wakes up every day and it counterclockwise radiates around the light. And then the most resilient part of it is at the end of the day, it goes down and recharges and then sets itself up at night to be ready to do the same thing the next day. And so for me, being able to be sort of strength-based and radiating towards light and bringing others towards light in a world where there's so much darkness, for me, that is what every social entrepreneur should be doing, right? Is radiating towards light.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. All right, well, I do not have any more questions. Do you have any questions for me, or should we call it a day?
How much does Casa de Vision need to raise this year?
Oh, my God. This man. I knew he was going to ask that. So let me just say, this is not the first time he puts me on the spot like this, because he did this at the Festival of the Diaspora, like a good preacher's kid, with like hundreds of people in the audience, raising money live. I mean, I felt like I was at an auction. You should all know that the funny thing is I'm an actual consultant for foundations and for nonprofits in the United States. Never had my own foundation. And so I've been put in this situation where I am now thinking, how do I grow this foundation? So I'm establishing it as a nonprofit here in Colombia. It is set, Casa Innovation Colombia. And I think that in order for us to have meaningful impact throughout the year, because it's Colombia, we should be working with at least $25,000 a year. And that is, by the way, if you're in the United States and you're in a foundation, that is nothing, right? That is
you can sign up on that. You don't need any
that is
requirements
nothing. That is a minimum. That's even below the threshold where you need high sign off.
Yeah, way below.
But I think that if we can get to a point where we have that type of funds, it allows us to keep the office going. It allows us to do, at the very minimum, do the infrastructure, and then we will tap you for funding for pitch competitions. Because what I would love to have is venture capitalists that can help us, or fundraisers that can help us, funders, that can help us do more pitch competitions for those 5 subgroups. We've only done one for Afro-Colombians. So I think if we have infrastructure at the $20,000 a year mark, we can then tap you for help in these specific pitch competitions.
And one note for the investors: when I was reading the pitches, and you're watching pitches, you're looking at financials, you're looking at profit margin, you're like, man, screw this competition. I'm about to write a check.
I know. We both had that issue.
I was like, stay focused, Cordell. Stay focused. Because the price point you can come in as an equity owner is so much lower. I mean, 3-4% of what it would cost in the U.S. Yeah. You could be a bona fide angel investor.
That's right.
At the cap table, reaping all the rewards of a growing business, yet you're providing enough resources they can really explode. And so I'm committed to being engaged as in any way that I can. But certainly I want to do a little more personal investing just on my own.
Well, we already hooked you for a board member for Kazakh.
Yes,
So
yes,
you'll be helping us
Yes.
figure out. I hope you guys got that on camera. That is beautiful. We have a bird nest up there and it just flew right behind you.
Okay.
So yes, we're committed to having you on the board and helping you teach us how to pitch to the right folks.
Yep.
So I want to thank you, Cordell, because I know you're my friend and you didn't have a choice, but you did. And you made it here, and I appreciate that, and sharing your sort of very valuable insights and experiences with us. For me, it's been our pleasure having you sort of kick off this Have a Tintico With Me guest component. I would love to have a podcast, and maybe we can get some more videos out of this. To our audience, remember to leave us some questions and comments in the section below, because Cordell and I want to address some of those after we post this. And then I would love for you to join me for Have a Tintico With Me sessions here in this balcony as we continue to talk about social impact, entrepreneurship, and really meaningful conversations. So until next time, Have a Tintico With Me.